A faint rustle of wind stirred the dry grass, making it tremble. Near the riverbank, a young lion lay, its stillness broken only by the shallow rhythm of its breathing. A thin moan escaped its throat, interrupted by labored, uneven breaths. Its left paw was twisted at an unnatural angle, claws scraping weakly at the dirt and leaving faint, glistening streaks of blood in the afternoon sun. A few meters away, he stood frozen, carefully studying the lion's posture. At every distant sound, the snap of a twig, the wind's soft whistle, the subtle calls of birds settling in nearby branches, its ears twitched. In the lion's half-closed eyes, there was a weary intelligence, a silent question directed at the intruder who had entered its space. They said not to go closer, he murmured under his breath, the words a tool to steady himself more than a communication. His entire being was attuned to the lion's slightest movement, every twitch or shift in weight a signal for him to adjust. The savanna lay spread around them, a vast expanse of rolling golden grass, a distant line of acacia trees, and the river's soft shimmer reflecting the sunlight like scattered gems. With deliberate, careful steps, he moved forward, each footfall measured and soft against the earth. As he knelt to examine the injured paw, the lion's breathing quickened, a shallow hiss escaping its throat. The snare had cut deep, leaving the flesh raw and swollen, with faintly darkened veins visible beneath the skin. Gently, he dabbed at the wound with a clean cloth, whispering quiet words of encouragement. The lion flinched but didn't flee, its gaze flicking from him to the ground and back again, as if testing the space that lay between them. Minutes stretched, feeling like hours. Dust swirled around his knees as he worked, carefully lifting the wire, ensuring no sudden pressure would cause more pain. The lion's body remained tense, but restrained. Every muscle was coiled, yet still, communicating in a way that needed no words. His own heartbeat fell into rhythm with the creature's slow breaths. Finally, with a faint metallic snap, the snare gave way. Relief washed over him, though it was tempered with caution. The lion tentatively lifted its paw, placing it on the ground to test its weight. Muscles rippled as it stretched, flexing its claws against the dirt in a quiet, deliberate assertion of its regained freedom. Slowly, the man stepped back, giving the lion space and allowing it to reclaim the wild it had been temporarily denied. For a heartbeat longer than expected, the young lion's gaze lingered on him. It wasn't recognition as humans understand it, only a silent acknowledgement, a measured trust that had been earned through patience and calm. Then, with a grace tempered by its injury, it turned and limped away through the golden grass. Its strides were deliberate, each one carrying it toward the distant horizon where the river met the late afternoon sky. He sank to the ground, letting the weight of the experience settle into him. The wind carried the faint scent of dust and sun-warmed fur. From the treetops, birds called, and the river whispered its steady, timeless song. There was no applause, no words of praise, only the quiet hum of life resuming its natural rhythm, and the lasting impression of a connection that would linger long after the lion had vanished from view. Under the morning sun, the grass shimmered as a low, soft growl rolled through the clearing. Emerging from the tree line, the mother lion moved with caution, her sleek form pressing each paw lightly into the earth. Her golden eyes were fixed on the young lion, its chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. She stopped a few meters short, her body tense, nostrils flaring as she caught the scent of the human nearby. He remained perfectly still, dropping slightly to the ground with his hands open and empty, being careful not to startle her. The wind carried the faint, metallic tang of the snare, the lion's scent mingling with dust and the earthy smell of the savanna after the previous night's rain. The mother shifted her weight, her tail flicking with restless energy. Her ears twitched at every distant sound, the croak of frogs near the river, the chatter of birds in the acacia above, the whisper of grass under unseen feet. "She's worried," he whispered, almost to himself, his voice as soft as the morning breeze. He took no step forward, letting her decide how close she wanted to come. The cub stirred tentatively, its paw trembling, eyes half-lidded as it responded to its mother's presence with cautious recognition. Time stretched. The man's pulse fell into step with the rhythm of the cub's breathing. Between mother and human, a silent negotiation unfolded, an invisible thread of understanding. With each minute, the mother edged a little closer, nose lowered, her eyes never leaving her injured cub. Her body language spoke the language of patience, tension slowly giving way to a cautious hope. Finally, the cub pushed itself upright, testing the air with a soft whine, a subtle sound of relief. The mother's ears twitched. Carefully, she took one step forward, then another, closing the distance without force. Her nose brushed against her cub's paw in a delicate, affirming gesture. The cub responded with a tiny, hesitant nuzzle, its muscles relaxing just enough to let the tension drain away. The man exhaled softly, a whisper that seemed to drift away on the warm wind. "It's okay. You're safe." No more words were needed. Briefly, the lion's eyes met his, measuring him, before returning to each other. As the sun climbed higher, the mother guided her cub away from the riverbank. Their steps were measured, cautious but steady. The cub leaned into her side, limping slightly, but moving with a newfound confidence. Dust swirled around them, golden in the sunlight, as if the earth itself was celebrating their reunion. He remained behind, his knees pressed into the warm soil, watching them fade into the tall grass. The soft rustle of the savannah carried the echoes of quiet trust and survival. There were no cheers, no triumphant gestures, only the lingering sense of having witnessed something fragile, delicate, and enduring. Once, the mother paused, casting a glance over her shoulder, her eyes lingering on him for the briefest of moments. Then she turned, her cub close, moving with the grace of creatures born to the wild. The clearing returned to its quiet rhythm, the whispering wind, the distant calls of birds, the steady pulse of life continuing on, uninterrupted. Across the tall grass, the wind shifted, carrying the dry, warm scent of earth and fur. Crouched low, the young lion tested its muscles, mindful of its recent injury, its ears flicking at every subtle sound. A few meters away, the mother stood vigilant, her head raised and nostrils flaring. The savannah felt alive with a quiet tension, the distant calls of birds, the crackle of twigs, the faint hum of insects weaving through the air. Crouched behind a sparse clump of bushes, he watched. The cub's steps were hesitant, its paws pressing cautiously into the soft earth as it tested its balance and strength. Its breathing was measured as it worked to steady itself. Small tremors ran through its legs, a reminder of the lingering pain, but in its amber eyes, determination shone. A sudden rustle in the grass froze both lions. From the shadow of an acacia tree, a lone hyena emerged, curious and bold, its eyes glinting with cautious interest. The mother's body tensed, her tail stiffening as a low, deliberate growl rumbled from her. The cub froze, its muscles coiled like springs, unsure whether to flee or fight. He remained still, his hands open, exhaling slowly. He knew any sudden movement could provoke panic. Instead, he whispered softly, a prayer carried on the wind. "Stay calm. It's okay." His words held no dramatic power, only a calm presence that seemed to extend across the clearing. The hyena hesitated, eyeing the cub and sniffing the air. The mother's low growl deepened, a warning rumble that vibrated through the earth. The hyena retreated a few steps, then paused again, weighing the risk. Emboldened by its mother's posture, the cub flexed its paws and stepped forward slightly, its ears flattened and tail flicking in controlled defiance. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the hyena turned and disappeared into the distant grass, leaving only the whispering wind and the quiet pulse of life. The cub exhaled a tiny hiss of relief, leaning into its mother's side. She nudged it gently, encouraging these small but vital steps toward independence. He allowed himself a slow breath, feeling the weight of witnessing life reclaim itself around him. Softly, the savannah sang, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, the faint hum of bees among wildflowers. Each sound was a reminder that life, fragile and beautiful, was moving forward with its own rhythm. By midday, the cub was walking more steadily, still limping slightly but with greater confidence. The mother's eyes never left her young, she was alert to every shadow and movement, guiding without force. They moved together across the golden grass, a silent dance of survival and trust. He rose slowly, careful not to draw attention, leaving them to their world. For a moment, the cub paused, glancing back toward him with a fleeting look of recognition, then returned to its mother's side. Dust swirled around their paws, catching the sunlight, and for an instant, the world felt suspended between fragility and resilience. The clearing fell quiet again, save for the faint murmur of the nearby river. He watched until both lions disappeared into the rolling grasslands, carrying with them the lessons of patience, trust, and courage, and leaving him with the memory of a bond that would last forever. Crisp with the faint scent of wet earth from last night's rain, the morning air was cool. The young lion padded cautiously across the golden grass, its paws sinking slightly into the soft soil. At a short distance, its mother followed, head low and muscles coiled like springs, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. Stumbling over a hidden root, the cub let out a soft whine as it lost its balance. Its ears flattened, eyes wide with uncertainty, its body frozen in hesitation. Immediately, the mother stepped forward, her nose brushing against the cub's shoulder in a quiet gesture of reassurance. From behind a clump of acacia, he watched, breathing shallowly to avoid startling them. Every movement was measured, every sound carefully noted, the distant buzz of insects, the faint rustle of grass, the gentle lap of water from the river nearby. The world seemed suspended, waiting for the cub to regain its footing. "Steady, steady," he murmured softly, his voice barely audible, a gentle encouragement carried by the wind. The words held no human authority here, they were only a quiet presence, a thread of calm. The cub shook its head, flexed its paws, and slowly began to move again. Its steps were unsteady, but determination glimmered in its amber eyes. The mother mirrored its movements, pacing alongside without rushing, allowing her young one to regain confidence. Each careful step, each hesitant paw placement, was a lesson in patience, trust, and resilience. Minutes passed. The cub ventured toward a patch of taller grass, sniffing, its ears twitching at every sound. Its small body pressed low, it was cautious but curious, exploring the boundaries of its world. He remained perfectly still, a silent observer, aware that even the slightest motion could break the fragile trust he had built with them both. Suddenly, a flock of birds erupted from the branches above, their wings flapping and calls loud. The cub froze again, its muscles taut and tail flicking in alarm. The mother's eyes locked onto the source of the disturbance, a deep, low growl vibrating through her chest. At the sound, the cub relaxed slightly, learning to read the cues of safety from its mother's calm authority. The sun climbed higher, casting long, golden streaks across the savanna. Gently, dust swirled around the cub's paws as it walked, its ears twitching and tail held high with cautious pride. The mother followed, vigilant yet patient, guiding without force, teaching without words. He exhaled slowly, letting the quiet of the savanna wash over him. The soft hum of insects, the distant murmur of the river, and the whispering wind became a symphony of resilience and life. The cub's trust, fragile yet growing, had begun to extend even toward him, shown in the measured acknowledgement of his presence from a safe distance. By afternoon, the young lion had ventured further than before, exploring the small valleys and dips of the terrain, while the mother remained close, her body language a constant guide. He stepped back slightly, letting them occupy their world, feeling a profound respect for the delicate balance between independence and protection. As the shadows lengthened, the cub returned to its mother, leaning against her side, its muscles relaxing after a long day of cautious exploration. Dust hung in the air, shimmering in the golden light, as if nature itself held its breath in reverence for the quiet triumph of trust regained. He watched until both lions disappeared behind a rise in the grassland, leaving only the gentle rustle of grass and the soft murmur of the river. No words were spoken, no applause was given, only the lingering sense of having witnessed life's fragile, enduring bonds, a memory etched into both his heart and the rhythm of the wild. Heavy with the scent of dry grass and distant rain, the air hung still as the mother lion led her cub across the rolling savanna. The young lion's steps were steadier now, its muscles flexing with confidence, its tail flicking with measured curiosity. In subtle ways, the world around them seemed alive, the soft hum of insects, the low whistle of the wind, and the occasional rustle of leaves whispered through the golden plains. At the edge of a small rise, the cub paused, sniffing the air, its ears rotating to catch sounds far beyond human reach. The mother stayed close, her head lowered slightly, her eyes scanning the horizon. Each careful movement conveyed both protection and the quiet expectation of independence. He remained at a distance, kneeling among the grass, letting the lions occupy their world. For just a heartbeat, the cub's amber eyes flicked toward him before returning to its mother's side. There was no growl, no sign of fear, only a measured acknowledgement, a gesture of trust earned over days of careful patience. A soft breeze stirred the dust around their paws, golden motes drifting like tiny lanterns in the sunlight. Guiding her cub forward, the mother nudged it toward a distant patch of shade beneath scattered acacia trees. The cub stepped lightly, pausing occasionally to test its strength, to stretch and flex, to feel the rhythm of the earth beneath its paws. "They are ready," he whispered, barely audible, his voice blending with the wind. The words felt unnecessary. The moment was clear in the quiet dignity of their movements. Mirroring the mother's confidence, each stride the cub took was stronger than the last, slowly bridging the gap between dependence and self-assurance. The sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows across the undulating grasslands. In the light, dust swirled, sparkling against the amber and tawny fur of the lions. They moved together, a small family unit navigating the vast wild, their steps deliberate yet free. Slowly, he rose, his hands relaxed at his sides, careful not to disturb the fragile harmony. He took a final step back, allowing them to vanish into the golden horizon. Once more, the cub glanced back, a fleeting flicker of recognition, then returned to its mother's side, disappearing over the ridge as the light softened into shades of orange and rose. Across the clearing, silence fell, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the tall grass. Nearby, the river murmured its gentle song, reflecting the sunset's colors. He sank to the ground, letting the beauty of the moment fill him, the trust, the patience, the quiet triumph of connection without intrusion. Above, birds winged homeward, calling softly to one another as the shadows stretched and merged with the earth. It seemed the savannah held its breath, honoring the fleeting intersection of human presence and wildlife. He rose, dusting his hands and shoulders, carrying with him the memory of eyes that had watched, tested, and ultimately allowed trust to blossom. The mother lion and her cub had returned to the wild, yet their presence lingered in his heart. Endlessly, the golden plains stretched ahead, the promise of survival and freedom echoing softly in every rustle of grass. And in that quiet moment, he understood a truth older than words, that the deepest bonds are often silent, earned through patience, respect, and unwavering